So Bezat Hashem will start learning a little bit Likutei Maharan. I don't know how often I'm going to give it over, just because it's a difficult book to learn, especially if you want to try understand, go into commentaries, like the different places he sends you to in different places in the Torah, to go and look and make sure you understand it, at least the simple level. But Bezat Hashem will move forward. So instead of starting from Aleph, from the first Torah, I want to start from Reish Pei Bet, just because it's a Torah that Reb Nachman really warned to go with this Torah wherever you go, and also said that it's a big foundation for getting close to Hashem, and which means getting into the Torah. So I don't think he said that anywhere else. He might have, but I feel like this is kind of like this concept is like a foundation for maybe the key, the foundation. I'm not sure exactly. I guess we'll find out as we go. But it's definitely like a foundation for understanding Likutei Maharan. It's kind of like one of those Torahs. You just the idea of the Torah you need to have, in the back of your mind as you're going through the different Torahs in Likutei Maharan. So, just a little like introduction before we start, just to understand what this Torah is about and maybe why it's such a big foundation that he says over here and warned everyone to walk with it. Is going back to one of the talks. Someone suggested today that I should, give titles and that. So I think I'm going to try remember to put a little title at the bottom when I send in the recording, just so people could kind of refer, which ones, or go back and look, because a lot of them have, connected ideas and stuff. They're kind of very connected, a lot of them. Anyhow, so I'll try to do that. So we know that in one of them I spoke about the whole Inyan, that the Chet of Adam HaRishon, the sin of Adam HaRishon from eating from the tree, was basically what happened is there was a blemish of the speech. What fell into the Galut, what they talk in Kabbalah about all the sparks of Kedusha that fell into the Galut, into the exile, is basically the sparks of the speech, and that's why we know that the whole fixing of the speech, it was in Egypt. Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't speak, stuttered or whatever. All the difficulty he had in speaking was because his Moshe Rabbeinu is like he needed to go and uplift and elevate the speech that fell, and it was kind of like the nefila of those. So Moshe Rabbeinu, who was going to redeem the speech, right, because it was in exile for so long and in this state of exile, so his mouth, his speech was in exile as well. So the sin of Adam HaRishon, we know that there was a lot of things that happened over there when he ate from the tree. One of the things we linked it into was the actual eating, the effect that the eating has on the speech when a person eats things that aren't kosher or things that are have from within them like klipot. So it affects his speech, meaning he goes into like a type of like an exile, into like a fall. Reb Nachman calls it into like a sleep. It's a type of a sleep which creates a separation between his mind and his heart, right? Because the speech, we know it's mipiv dat utvuna. A person reveals what's in his mind, like Reb Nachman says, that through what someone speaks, you can tell what he's thinking about. So a person's thoughts are revealed through their speech, and how they speak. Different kinds of speech that people have will reveal what they're thinking. So you can actually know what people are, what's going on in the head when they're not talking, by when they do reveal it. That's why it says siag lachochma shtika, like the thing that protects the wisdom is being silent. Because when you're silent, you're basically receiving. You're just receiving from the outside, and that is a protection from the. It's a protection. It's like the walls that protect the wisdom is the silence. So, one of the things that Adam HaRishon fell in, right, was this Indian of a speech, which put the speech into the exile. This eating made the speech go into a galut, into an exile, and through that, basically, is the whole thing. The whole getting kicked out of Gan Eden and everything was because of that. The other thing that also was a blemish, that the reason why it's connected to speech, is because Adam HaRishon, we know that he said when Hashem said, "Did you eat from the forbidden fruit?" So he blamed Chava. He said, "Aisha shenatata imadi natna li va'ochel," right? The wife that you gave me, she's the one that gave me and I ate. So he spoke lashon hara, which was the pagam, the blemish of the dibur. We know also Chava corresponds to the heart, right? Chava is the Malchut. She's like the receiver. She's the woman, and Adam is he's the mashpia. So in everything, man, woman, sun, moon, right? Mount Sinai, the Torah, Am Yisrael, the next world, this world, all these ideas basically, they correspond to this heart and mind, the giver, the receiver. So we know Chava, she corresponds to the Malchut, right? She's like that aspect of the Malchut, and Adam is her name Chava also is Chava comes from it's the Laila Laila Yachave Da'at, like in the nighttime a person reveals his Da'at through speech. So Yechaveh comes from the word Chava, right? It's actually the word of like speech. So this was like the pagam, the blemish of the speech, and the other thing that was caused, that we see from the speech that's related to the separation between the heart and the mind, is when the spies, we see that the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, which, like we said in previous talks, the Beis Hamikdash corresponds to the mind, right? The destruction of the Beis Hamikdash is the destruction of the mind. So the source of where the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, first and second temple, came from was basically from the spies. The spies went to the Holy Land, which the Holy Land is the Malchut. It's that aspect of the woman, of Chava, the receiver, right? The Malchut is like, the Holy Land is like when Am Yisrael, when we received the Torah from Mount Sinai, so Moshe Rabbeinu was the one that brought down like the Torah, which is like the light, and the nation of Israel, we were like the vessel that was receiving that light. So Am Yisrael is considered like the feminine aspect, the receiver, the Malchut, right? So Am Yisrael corresponds in a general aspect, we correspond to the heart, which receives the wisdom from the mind, right? The mind, it's basically, the whole concept of, I think, like the way I'm going to try go through Likutei Moharan as best I can, is this whole concept of taking the wisdom in the mind, the da'at of the Torah, and drawing it down into the heart. And how do we do that? How does a person bring down the light of the Torah into his heart? Because the heart is the place of, the Yetzer Hara. The heart is the place of, all the taivas, the lusts, and bad midot, and everything we have is all in the heart. So the way to subdue that and to weaken the force, the strong evil force, the Yetzer Hara from within the heart, the way to do it is by drawing down the light of the Torah, godliness, into the heart, into the place of so that whole idea of drawing the wisdom of Hashem that we have in our mind, drawing it down into the heart, like it says, that you need to serve Hashem and keep everything He said and serve Him with your heart. These things I'm commanding you today should be on your heart. It's all about drawing it down, and the whole prayer and Tehillim, everything where you read, you see it's always talking about this idea of drawing the wisdom of the Torah, everything that Hashem gave us on Mount Sinai, drawing it down into the heart. But when the Torah was coming down from Mount Sinai, there was the sin, the golden calf, which means the golden calf corresponds like inside Am Yisrael, they were doing the golden calf, that kind of corresponds to the Yetzer Hara that's from within our heart, right? We have a Yetzer Hara in the heart. So when the wisdom is coming down, into the heart, that's the place of the Yetzer Hara. And we know Moshe Rabbeinu, it says, came down from the mountain, and he saw the golden calf, broke the tablets, and he basically came down and purified the nation. He took the golden calf and whatever, he grinded it up, tachon adak, he grinded it into, and he spread the ashes or whatever on the water. It was a whole, I don't know exactly what he did there, but he did something and he purified, the sin, and then he went up to the mountain, and so that's that idea of the Torah coming down, right? Into the, coming down from the mountain, being drawn down from the mind into the heart and purifying. Because Moshe Rabbeinu corresponds to the da'at of the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu is like, Ta'oret al da'at, Yashem Elokim, you're the one that draw down the Torah, and you're the one that revealed, godliness into our heart and gave us this idea that there's one God in the world, right? It all was done through Moshe Rabbeinu. So So that's that idea that the Torah that we bring into our heart when we learn Torah, into our mind, when a person learns Torah, he draws it down and brings it into his heart. That's what wipes out the golden calf. That's what wipes out the Yetzer Hara that's in the heart. And slowly, creates a connection, because we know the whole separation between Am Yisrael and Hashem, the whole exile that we're in, where we don't have the third temple's not built, and all that is all caused. The main reason that this has caused this separation between Hashem and the Shekhinah, that all avodat Hashem, mitzvahs, Torah, tefillah, everything we do is in order to unify between Kodesh Baruch Hu and Shechinte, to bring the tikkun of the olamot, to bring the world back to its fixing, back to that first tablets, back to the Adam HaRishon before the sin, and to that aspect of without the Yetzer Hara, wiping it out. It all depends on bringing back a unification between the heart and the mind, right? That shvirat lev, that brokenness that we have from within our heart, what they call, lots of different names they call it, right? The heart of stone, different things that are from within our heart that are creating that separation. And what happens, that separation basically creates, as soon as there's a separation between the heart and the mind, it creates like these clouds that kind of go on a person's eyes, and everything he goes into like this sleep, and he's just living in the world, we're living, going, doing what we need to do, but not feeling like Elokut, Once in a while Hashem gives a little awakening, he sends people awakenings, you suddenly get like Shabbos or a day or one of the holidays or something where you suddenly feel an awakening, a strong connection, like real yearning to Hashem, and in prayer and learning, whatever it is, you feel this strong love towards Hashem that just suddenly comes out of nowhere, right? So that's like, every once in a while they kind of move the clouds a little bit, there's like a little bit of an opening. But really the way it's supposed to be is that if the heart was really, like, if all the Torah was in the heart, right, coming down from the mind into the heart and really wiping out all the bad, then a person would be just like yearning non-stop, like feel such a strong connection, because on a personal level his heart and mind, Kodesh Baruch Hu Shechinte, right, would unify. So on a general aspect of the entire nation, we see that the destruction of the first and second temple happened because the spies spoke Lashon Hara about the Holy Land, which corresponds to the Malchut. So they came to the land and spoke Lashon Hara, and that Lashon Hara, caused, like Chazal say, that because they came and spoke all that Lashon Hara and the nation was crying, Hashem turned that day was Tisha B'Av, the Gemara says, and that's when the first and second temple got destroyed. So we see that the Mamish, the temple got destroyed, right? The Malchut, the kingdom of Hashem, we know the Malchut of Hashem was supposed to be revealed in the Holy Land at that time, right? When they went, we were supposed to go in and build a Beis HaMikdash, Mamish, build that place where Hashem could dwell and be king on the land, Melech al kol haaretz, Bayom Awi Hashem echad u'shmo echad, Hashem will be a king in that day to come, right? Hashem will be one, His name will be one, right? That was supposed to happen right then, before the Lashon Hara that they spoke badly about the Holy Land. And that caused basically the destruction of the temple. So we see that the destruction of a person's temple, how does this, right? Of course, it's always, we need to try to apply it to us. So the destruction of the temple, which means the destruction of my mind, what's gonna create this Churban Beis HaMikdash, where God won't be able to dwell, in my heart, because we know that Yerushalayim is the place of fear. That's why it's called Yerushalem. So it's the place, Jerusalem is this concept of the heart. The Beis HaMikdash itself is the concept of prayer and tefillah and Torah, which is the heart and the mind. Like we said, I expanded it in one of the different, I think that was the long talk that I gave, an hour and 10 minutes or something. I think that was where I spoke a lot about that. If you listen to that, whoever didn't hear it, it'll make a lot more sense, what I'm saying right now. But anyhow, so that the destruction of the temple means that the destruction of my mind, what does it depend on? What does it depend on? That if a person, wants to come out of that aspect of that separation between his heart and his mind, so how does he do that? it's basically, we learn it from the Meraglim, right? They spoke Lashon Hara and the temples got destroyed, the Beis HaMikdash got destroyed. So the Lashon Hara, when a person speaks Lashon Hara, forget about speaking Lashon Hara about, outside of you. That's okay. That's to speak Lashon Hara about, other people. It's bad, but let's just talk about ourselves, right? How do I speak Lashon Hara about myself? So the Lashon Hara that people speak about themselves is basically, it's the way they think about themselves, because the eyes, like Rashi over there says, when they ate from the fruit, Adam and Chava, when they ate from the forbidden fruit, it says Vatipakachna einei shnehem, that their eyes opened up and they suddenly realized they were naked. So Rashi over there says, what do you mean? Obviously they weren't like blind, because even a blind person knows if he's naked or not. So Vatipakachna einei shnehem, that their eyes opened up. Rashi says that it's actually he says le'inyana chochma diber hakatuv velo la'einayim, that he was talking about their eyes opened up, meaning it was talking about their wisdom, their mind opened up. They got to like an understanding in their mind. So speaking Lashon Hara about it oneself means that he's thinking, right? Because where the source of Lashon Hara, looking bad, right? Why would a person speak bad about someone else? Because he sees with his eyes someone else, right? He sees outside of him something bad, and then he speaks about the bad thing he saw, right? So that's one aspect of looking at something with your eyes outside of you. And then there's another aspect of looking, with your eyes, having that blemish of the eyes, right? Which Lashon Hara is, and a person, he's looking with his mind, the eyes of his mind, on himself. He's looking at all of his blemishes and his things that he's bad at and doesn't do good. And he's basically talking, he's playing like the role, he's doing the role of the spies and speaking bad about himself, thinking bad about himself. He doesn't even need to speak it, right? Most people won't speak it, but they'll think it. They'll think, everybody wants to be good, right? Who doesn't want to be good? Who doesn't want to be close to Hashem? Who doesn't want to yearning to be holy? And right, everyone wants to be better in whatever it is they're trying to be better in life. So, but the thing that's holding them back is that they're thinking in their mind about, they're focusing on the negative, on the bad. So all those negative thoughts where a person feels lack of confidence, lack of security, he doesn't feel, there's all these like different ideas about himself, how other people perceive him, and so on. That is all basically creating, like, because Eretz Yisrael, the Holy Land, is in comparison to on a worldly, on a big scale. So Eretz Yisrael is the aspect of the heart, right? It's like that heart and mind, and the rest of the world is the whole body, right? So when a person is using his mind, right, and he's thinking bad, it's in that category of Lashon Hara. He's thinking bad in his mind about his things that he did bad. He's basically, what he's doing is he's speaking Lashon Hara about his heart, right? The Holy Land. Like, he's speaking, he's thinking bad about all of his negative things that he did, and all the things that he knows he didn't do right, and whatever, all the, negativity that everybody thinks about themselves. He's basically speaking, the Lashon Hara about about himself, and creating through that, he's giving strength, because he's speaking because he's thinking negative about himself, about all the bad, which all stems, we know, from the heart, whereas the Mishkan of the Yetzer Hara, all the bad stems from the heart. So because he's thinking and focusing on that negative, on that bad, what he's doing is he's strengthening the power of bad from within his heart. And the stronger the negative and the bad in the heart gets, the more it separates between the mind and the heart. That's what creates that exile, that galut, between the heart and the mind. And that's the reason why Bnei Israel couldn't go into the land. After the spies came out, they had to leave, because what the spies did is they went in and they spoke bad and came back and said bad things about the land, which is the heart. And Am Yisrael, we know, is Dod De'ah, they're the mind, right? And so they couldn't go now. They couldn't. What they did is through the Lashon Hara, they spoke about the land. They created a separation between the nation, which was on the border of Eretz Yisrael, and Eretz Yisrael. They created a separation. They gave strength, and that's exactly what they did when they went into the land. What did they do? They said the Amalek Yoshev Banegev. The nation of Amalek is in the Negev, and we went there, and there was huge mountains. There was huge cities with giant walls, and they're very strong, and we saw giants. And they basically, what did they do? That by speaking the Lashon Hara about the land, they gave strength to the nations that were there, to that Yetzer Hara, right? They gave strength. And by that, they created this separation where a person starts feeling, right? Am Yisrael were crying in their tents, and Hashem said, you guys cried for no reason, right? You didn't trust. That if you just trusted in me, that I told you that it's a good land, and you would go in with that trust, that it's a good land, even though you see on the outside it seems like it's bad, but it is a good land. You need to know that Eretz Yisrael is a good land, meaning, yes, you have a Yetzer Hara that I gave you when you were born, but you have to believe that just drawing down goodness into your heart and just speaking good and having trust that if I promised you the land, if I told you to draw down the Torah and mitzvahs that I give you into your heart and serve me with your full heart and bring all the Torah and mitzvahs and everything you learn about and everything, bring it into your heart and speak about it and be happy about it, right? Then all the bad will just disappear. You have to just act like that bad is not there. And the Meraglim, this was their main pgam. The main pgam was that they went into the land, and instead of just going around and seeing, okay, there's Amalek, okay, there's high mount, there's giants, whatever. They didn't trust that that just by speaking, by having that trust that Hashem, because Hashem told us to go in, we're going in, even though we feel like the land is filled with bad, right? Even though I feel like in my heart I did so many bad things. And how could I like, God forbid, do something good before Hashem, where I know in my heart my Yetzer Hara overcame me in so many different things, and I did so many big sins before Hashem, right? My heart's so filled and strong with impurity. How could I possibly, draw down Torah and keep Hashem's mitzvahs and stuff in the land, right? So this is what created that separation, where Hashem said, okay, so Hashem took us back out. We couldn't come in, because we gave them strength, we gave them an existence. So it created a separation between Am Yisrael and Hashem and the land. And we had to walk around the desert. We went around the desert for 40 years, and we know those whole 40 years were basically elevating. The Zohar says that we were elevating all these klipot, all these sparks of holiness that were in the desert. We were elevating and uplifting. So it's like that desert is that kind of exile where a person needs to go out into exile. Even in the exile, Hashem's there with you, and you have a Mishkan, and Hashem's always dwelling with you, and like the Torah describes, that Hashem was always with them in the Mishkan, and when the cloud went up, then we would go, and when the cloud would come down, then we would stop and we would camp. It's like a Yishuv Adat, that concept, just to understand that inyan. We're going to get to Reish Pei Bet, God willing, but to understand that inyan, that when the cloud went up, right, it says that when the cloud went up from Ohel Moed, then they would walk. They would start traveling, right? And when it would go down and dwell on the Ohel, on the Mishkan, they would all stop and everybody would camp, right? So what's the difference between camping and moving forward, right? Going out and traveling now, moving along. So the difference is that when the cloud corresponds, like when Hashem is coming and dwelling on a person. What I was saying earlier, that when a person suddenly feels an awakening, right? He feels this ishtoikikut, this yearning towards Hashem, sometimes, and then it goes away and it comes back. It comes like periodically, these ups and downs. So when the cloud comes down, when Hashem comes and dwells with the Anan on top of the Ohel, on the Mishkan, so everybody would stop, right? They would stop, and now everybody's no more traveling, walking, distraction. Like sitting, when you're stopping and you're camping, it's a type of your mind is settled. It's like a Yishuv Adat, right? And then when the cloud goes up, meaning suddenly that light disappears, and the person's like, back in the down again. He doesn't know what's going on. What does he do? He's not settled, right? He starts traveling, and we know that while they were traveling from place to place, that's how they were elevating. So they were constantly going through this up and down, as they were going through the desert. They were getting a huge, a light. When the cloud would come down, they'd get an awakening. It would bring them, close to Hashem, and then they would disappear, right? The cloud would go up and they'd start traveling again. And they did this for 40 years. So this corresponds kind of like to a person's life, that he has these ups, downs, right? We're going through this stage, but the ultimate purpose is that the tachlit is that we need to get back into Eretz Yisrael, right? We need to bring a unification once again between the mind, which is Am Yisrael, the nation of Israel, the 12 tribes that have the Holy of Holies, right? The Mishkan with the Torah we got from Hashem, which is the mind, the Da'at, the wisdom of God. We need to bring it into the Holy Land and connect the mind with the heart. The Holy Land is the heart, right? But after the Meraglim, so this, again, to apply it to us, this is that whole idea. When a person is thinking in his mind, looking at himself, which means in his mind he's thinking about all the negative things that he did throughout his life, and the bad from within him, and what he's not good at, and so on, everybody's whole long list. What that does is that's like the spies speaking bad and giving strength to the evil force from within them and creating the separation. So the whole avodah, the whole question is how do we not do that, not speak the bad, and create, and basically start creating like a unification, subduing the bad from within our heart and creating a unification between the mind and the heart again. So a person could start feeling godliness from within his heart, right? Feeling like the Torah needs to basically come down from his mind into his heart and start weakening the evil force from within it, and he'll start feeling this strong connection to Hashem. So that's basically what it's all about. The other thing is, this is right last thing before we start the Reish Pei Bet, this whole introduction is just so we understand like what Reish Pei Bet, what this Torah is all about, this whole idea. So we know the other thing is, the Chazal say, the rabbis teach us that the destruction of the temple was because of just basically people hating, sinat chinam. People hated each other for no reason. Now, whatever it means, back then people were on very, very high levels. But Chazal say that the destruction of the temple was because of sinat chinam. They hated each other for no reason. And we know that basically the fixing of it is ahavat chinam. To love someone for no reason. Just to love a person just because he's another person, he's a creation of Hashem, and every person has lots of good from within them, which is a part of Hashem. So I just love them. I love all the good from within them, just for no reason. I don't have to have a reason to love someone that has someone else. But ahavat chinam, loving someone else and judging someone else favorably for no reason, this is the foundation of the building of the third temple. The third temple that will never get destroyed, right? So the destruction was because of hatred, and the building of it is going to be because of love. And it's also like one of the things they ask you when you go up to the next world. There's a bunch of questions, but one of them is, tzipita la Yeshua, right? So that means like, were you waiting for Mashiach, right? So everybody's always yelling, we want Mashiach now, right? Mashiach, who doesn't want Yeshua? But on a personal level, they're basically asking you, tzipita la Yeshua, did you always yearn and wait for your personal redemption, right? Because a person's redemption is when he finally gets a unification between his heart and his mind. When his heart and his mind become one again, when he can weaken and eventually wipe out completely, because it's not a quick process. It's not like they went into the Holy Land after the 40 years in the desert. They went in and wiped out the 31 kings that lived there in 2 seconds, right? It was done. No, it was a whole process. Yoshua didn't even finish it. It only got done by David HaMelech years later. David HaMelech had to do the final, because they wiped out a bunch of them, but there was still some left, and they already divided the land. And then Yoshua was kind of, Yoshua was dragging it on a little bit. Chazal say that it made it go long, but it took a very long time, which means it's not something that happens immediately, but it's something that if a person learns the Torah in the right way and uses, gets the right eitzas and understands this whole concept, this whole idea that hopefully we'll in Reish Pei Bet, in this Torah we're going to start with, we'll understand it, and from here it'll give us a foundation to start going through Likutei Moharan. it'll give all the tools and things that we need, a deeper and a deeper mind and heart understanding of how to subdue and wipe out that evil from the heart, and slowly start, rebuilding the connection between our mind and our heart, which is basically the question they asked you: were you waiting for that redemption? Were you waiting for the Mashiach? So they mean, were you waiting for that redemption from the bad? Okay, it's a process, but it could happen, right? So that's the question. So as long as a person is working on that idea, even a little bit, every day, a little bit more, he does a little, that's why Reb Nachman was so big on the Hitbodedut. You have to do Hitbodedut and daven and have this connection to Hashem, because in Hitbodedut, what a person does is he's davening and praying. So we know that the fixing of Chet Adam HaRishon was the falling of the speech. It was the blemish of the speech. So the fixing of the speech, we know, is the words of Torah, and especially the words of Tefillah, because the Tefillah is like a very, very high thing. So Bezrat Hashem, through that we'll go into Reish Pei Bet, at least get started a little bit. How long has it been? Yeah, it's been already half an hour. Maybe a little bit we'll go, and then we'll continue next time. So it says, Da ki tzarich ladun et kol adam lekav zchut, ואפילו מישהו רשע גמור, צריך לחפש ולמצוא בו איזה מעט טוב, שבאותו המעט טוב אינו רשע. So you need to judge every single person favorably, even a person who's a complete rasha. You have to search and find from within him some good, that in that little bit of good that he does, he's not considered an evil person. And by searching and finding this little bit of good that a person has, and you judge him favorably because of that good, through that you elevate him, and you can really bring him into the kaf zchut, on the side of the scale of the good. And you could help him, this person, mamish, get awakenings and tshuva. You can mamish come back, get tshuva from it. And this is the aspect, what it says in Tehillim. David HaMelech says, V'od me'at ve'en rasha, and a little bit more, and there's no evil, and you look on his place, and he's gone. He's not there anymore. So this pasuk, David HaMelech is warning us that we need to judge every single person favorably, and even if we see that he's a complete rasha, he's a complete evil person. On any hand, we need to judge him, we need to search and find from within him. He says over here, lechapes ulevakesh. So I think levakesh is to ask. It's kind of like, even to daven for it, if a person sees that he doesn't have those eyes, right? He doesn't have that ability when he sees somebody that's really, really off, like a complete, evil person off the derech, right? So to just daven to Hashem and ask Hashem, please Hashem, give me those eyes to be able to judge somebody favorably, like the story of Levi Yitzchak ben Berditchev, that Imamish wouldn't, he would always search, and he wouldn't start davening until he found, a Nekuda Taiva, like I spoke about last time. And this is what David HaMelech is saying, Ve'od me'at ve'en rasha, and a little bit more, we look a little bit more and we'll see there's no evil. That you need to search and find that little bit of good that he still has left from within him. Because every person has a little bit of good left from within him. That in that little bit of good, he's not over there in that place of good, he's not evil. Even though he is, he says, Ki af al pi, because even though he is an evil person, right? And he does bad things and he's really evil, how could it be that there isn't a little bit of good from within him left, a little something? Because how could it be he didn't do some sort of mitzvah or something good in his life? Everybody does good stuff, right? Chazal say, we're filled with mitzvah, with Am Yisrael, kefelach harimon hakatech, right? That Am Yisrael are filled with mitzvahs like a pomegranate. So every person has, lots of mitzvahs that they didn't, if not mitzvahs, at least some good deed. Because something good is also considered a mitzvah, even though it's not one of the mitzvahs in the Torah. Nachman says anything that has a ratzon, there's a ratzon of Hashem from within it, that Hashem desires that thing, would be done, and a person does it, it's considered a mitzvah. It's like a branch of a mitzvah, even though it's not an actual one of the 613. And Rav Nachman says, and by this that you find from, by searching and finding from within him another little bit of good, that in that little bit of good he's not evil, and you judge him favorably, through that you elevate him and you uplift him, truly you uplift him to mikaf chova kaf zchut. You take him off the side of the scale where he's chayav, where he's bad, the blame, and you bring him onto the good side of the scale. Meaning you tip the scale to the good. Until he could really chazar b'tshuva and come back through this. And this is what David HaMelech meant when he said ve'od me'at ve'en rasha, that a little bit more, by finding from within the rasha, the evil person, a little bit of good, even if it's just a tiny little bit, but by finding that in that little bit of good he's not bad, through that, you will look on his place and you will see that he's gone. That bad is gone. In other words, he's saying when you look around on his place where he was before, you look over there and he's not in the same place that he was. Because by taking a person out, right, and finding from within him that little bit of good, even if it's just a tiny little nekuda, a little dot, and judging him favorably, through that you truly take him out of Kav Chova, you bring him into Kav Zchut. So he just goes completely into the good. And this is what it means, that you look onto his place and he's gone. Now I think I'll stop right over here. So this is the aspect where he speaks about judging everybody else favorably, and then God willing tomorrow we'll continue on judging yourself favorably, and then from there we're going to go into some pretty amazing deep stuff. The end of the Torah here is like very, very intense and deep, beautiful stuff. Anyhow, take care, guys.